So Vishal came to every program we ever did. How long have you been coming to our programs?
5 years.
5 years. And you know, he came to one of our programs, and he was just that guy that is always coming up to the microphone and asking interesting questions and saying, you know, since last year I've doubled my business, and then I did this, and I started a new company, and I'm setting this goal. And he's just a performer. And then how long ago did you start Ultimate Virtual Employee? 4 years ago. So 4 years ago, he started another business to help people outsource virtual assisting, technology, design, mostly to India, which is his home country, which I got to go visit with my wife about, what, December of last year. And so and we went, and I fell in love with India and thought it was really amazing. And so he goes to India, meets with the various companies there, really has a good relationship with them, and he's now worked with several different people that I know, helping them outsource a lot of their work. And so he's an entrepreneur, he's successful, he knows our stuff, he's got some great tips for helping hire people virtually, helping outsource internationally, hire people at a much lower rate than you might expect. So please just give Vishal a little welcome here.
Thank you, Eben. Hello. Okay, so as Eben just said, I first started as an internet marketer, grew my business to a point where I was doing close to $250,000, and I was just my solo entrepreneur, and I pretty much hit my top ceiling. I literally struggled for 3-4 months, could not grow beyond that, and that's when actually I landed up into an online training on outsourcing. Got really blown away with the concept of delegating tasks overseas. Started building a team, first in Philippines, hired 1, 2, 3, 4, and teams kept growing. And in less than a year, I was able to double my business. And interesting part was I worked half as many hours as I did in the previous year. So at that point, I had a lot of coaching clients start asking me, would you teach us? How do you do that? And I launched a coaching program, taught a whole bunch of entrepreneurs. But most people came back to me and say, hey, it's really good that you're teaching us, but why don't you start a company and bring on these awesome developers and designers, and we can hire them from you? And that's actually, that idea came from Eben's. In 2009, I came to his event. Some of the people asked me this, and that just idea came from thin air. And since then, I've gone to build a company with the scalability of 80 developers and designers in India, and have held 50 clients in 6 different countries.
That's great. So,
thank you. Thank you.
Really, like, we can hire people in another country. You can really have a developer or a designer that's on the other side of the planet? Like, really?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Who here, I'm just interested, I haven't asked this question, who here either would like to hire a developer or an engineer now, or could see yourself wanting to hire one at some point and would like more information on hiring a developer or an engineer outside the country? Who's interested in that kind of thing? All right, let's talk about that a little bit. So, how does someone identify a great developer, and how does someone hire one in an outsourced kind of fashion?
So I'll talk about a methodology which we have refined over the last 4 years, which works really well in picking up the great developer. I learned this from Eben and started following Brad Smart's top grading process. And we use the questionnaire to basically interview a whole bunch of developers when we are looking to hire a great developer using Brad Smart's techniques. And once we have picked up 3 or 4 really good developers for a particular role which we are trying to fill, we actually give them a small test project. And we give the same test project to all 4 of them. And I call it split test hiring. So you give them, and then you can tell them, hey, guys, just go do it. And then in 3-4 days, they'll come back with the project being done. And we very closely monitor. We look for the quality of the work. We look for how much attention to detail they have paid. How many, did they follow all the instructions or not? And then we also look for how proactive they were in communication. Once we finalize one of the candidate, once we pick up the winner, then we basically let them work for a few months and keep them in a close eye. And in a few months, we make them a permanent employee. Then if the next tip I can give you guys, if you're looking for a developer, is work with a company with a proven track record. Look for the different designs and websites they've done in past, and make sure the team you're working with is equipped with multiple skill sets. What I mean by multiple skill sets is, let's say you're only looking for a developer and you hire a developer, and if the developer is working in a team where there are other skill sets like designer is also available, mobile app developer is there, then what happens is that if you have an occasional need of a design or mobile app, you're not stuck there with a developer. You can tell him, hey, go get it done, and then if he's working in a team environment, he can get it done and not get stuck, and your project can keep moving. Another thing which you would definitely want to look for in a company when you're hiring is the management of that company should have a very sound understanding of marketing, because I guess all of us here are entrepreneurs and we're looking to build websites which actually sells. So one of the big mistakes which people do is that they will go hire a developer who have no understanding of marketing, who will do a really good job of building beautiful websites, but they won't convert. So you really need to find somebody who has the right frequency as you guys have, so that you don't get disappointed once you get a project done. And another tip I can give you is you really need to be aware of the difference between an A-player developer and C-player developer, and I learned this from Eben. Like Eben says in his report, C-player developer is very good at creating job security, and we've seen it over and over. What they'll do is they'll go write a whole bunch of code, and they'll make sure that only they can understand it. And what happens is most of us entrepreneurs who are really not technical, they will look at the look and feel of the website, and if they're satisfied, they'll keep moving. They'll only realize when that developer leaves the company or they bring on new developers on board that nobody else can work with this code because there's a complete mess behind it. So what I recommend that even if you hire the best developer you have, make sure occasionally you hire a third-party company who can give you an unbiased opinion of how the code is written, so that if you start growing your product, eventually you don't build a product and 6 months down the line you figure out that it's not at all scalable. So those are some techniques I use to grow the business.
You've done some, you used to be a developer or an engineer in some, right?
Yeah. I've done bachelor's and master's in computer engineering. I've been a software engineer myself for 12 years, and for the last 6 years I've been an internet marketer.
That's great. So what about communicating with outsourced employees, right? So you need to keep them on track. How do you get updates? They're on the other side of the world.
Yeah, so one of the biggest challenges which I hear on and on from our prospects and clients is they have had really hard time communicating and getting things done. So when I say communication, one problem is that they always complain about is that we give developer a project, and it comes back with completely different than what they had envisioned. That happens many times. Anybody had that problem before? So, and the second problem which happens is the developer will commit to a deadline which they will never meet. So what we did in last 4 years is we developed a methodology which always keeps the developer and the client in a closed, tight loop, and it almost always works. So I'll give you a 5-step process of how we do it. So step number 1, you definitely want to pick a very, very organized project management system. Many entrepreneurs, I mean, it's really sad, I've seen some really successful entrepreneurs as well, rely on just email communication between them and their developers, which works very ineffectively because files get lost, communication gets lost, it gets misunderstood. There's no visibility. So you want to pick a very organized project management system, and the system we use, which we really like, is teamworkprojectmanager.com. It's very much like Basecamp, but we find it a little teamworkprojectmanager.com. It's an Irish-based company. We really love it. Team, like T-E-A-M.
Yeah, teamwork, T-E-A-M.
teamworkprojectmanager.com. Once you've picked up your project management system, when you're working with a project, you want to make sure that you take your big project and divide them into small segments, small tasks. And a good project management system like Basecamp and Teamwork will allow you to upload those projects in small tasks and assign to different people. You can put milestones, you can put delivery dates, and that really helps you keep organized and also make sure the developer also knows exactly what is expected out of him. So that's step 2. You divide the project into small tasks and upload into the system. Step 3, which is very important, which also we guide our clients to use, we encourage them, which works really well, is most of the developers get really good idea of what you're trying to achieve if they get visual instructions. If you send out really long emails explaining what you want to get done, most of the times I've noticed, no matter how good the developer is, something gets missed. And the best way to ensure that it always gets done correctly is use some software, piece of software which we use is called Jing, J-I-N-G. It's a free software, you can Google it, and we basically encourage our clients to make quick 3 to 4 minute videos and explain screen capture videos and explain what you're trying to achieve in the task. And if you want to go one step further, you may want to take a screen capture picture of your website and put arrows and tell them exactly what you want changed. Using the combination of video and picture, make sure that 99% of the time, developer will come back with exactly what you had asked. That works extremely well. The step 4 is you want to make sure you want to give very clear priority order to your developers. What you don't want to do as an entrepreneur is that assume that the developer will know exactly what your business priorities are, what projects you are working on, what projects you want to get done tomorrow or a week later. Very simple thing, nothing fancy. Every day, or if you're discussing with your developer on a daily basis or a weekly basis, that you choose. But whatever frequency you choose, you want to make sure you give them priority 1 task A, priority 2 task B, priority 3 task C, and then ask them that at the end of the day, when they're done with their day, to send you a small email through the project management system and comment on each task and each priority, what got done, what is in progress, and what's still pending. So if you use these 5-step formula, it works really well, and there are very less disappointments, especially when you're working with an overseas worker.
Awesome. What about managing productivity? And like, how do you make sure they stay on task, get a lot done, especially when you're not there?
What's funny is that we noticed a lot of our clients, when they come on and they work with our developers, they sometimes assume that the developer will come in and suddenly they'll be most productive and they will know everything about the business. So the first thing you definitely want to do is invest some of your time in when you bring them on board. Once you've done your due diligence, you make sure you train them and basically tell them what the vision of your company is. Don't make sure you enroll them in your vision of the company, because if you take your developer, whether overseas or locally, as just a developer who is going to work on some piece of code which you don't want to do, and developer feels that oh, I'm not really important, that really brings their productivity down. Versus if you tell them that what you're doing really makes the big impact on the way how our company is growing, what our vision is, they really get excited, and that really helps, especially in an environment where the developer is not getting any face time with you. So in all your communication, you always want to make sure whenever they do a good job, appreciate that. If they don't do a good job or if they miss something, be a little patient, at least in first 3 to 4 weeks, and give them a very constructive feedback of what they missed, and encourage them to not make those mistakes. Another really good tip I can give you, which makes them very productive, which we did with Ben's team, that helps a lot, is we built a specific checklist which the developer will follow every time he's delivering a site. So we do a lot of splashes for the team. And initially, we had some hiccups when we figured out that most of the splash, for an example, had a very specific routine of what process needs to be followed to deliver a successful splash or successful website. So we worked with Ben's team, and they were extremely helpful in coming up with ideas, and we developed a specific checklist to which we give it to our developers, and every day that gets followed. And at the end of the day, when they send a status report, they tell us exactly if they missed anything, if anything is in progress in the checklist, they tell exactly, and that keeps the team on track, that keeps their morale high, and that keeps them very productive.
That's great. Vishal, I think that just based on this conversation, I think we should let them ask you a few questions.
Sure.
What do you think about that? Who is interested someday in maybe outsourcing something like technology, design, service? Yeah. Any questions for this guy while he's here?
Hi, it's John Lee from London. Is it just websites and development, but do you do editing for videos and things like that?
Our core focus is design, development, mobile apps, but we are very well connected. We are very fast growing company, so we can take occasional requests. We don't specifically do video editing, but if the client's project is going and if they need a small help, we definitely can find people or consultants who can get it done.
So one of the biggest problems is if you want to have high quality video, you have to upload like 2 or 3 gigs of video, and then you have to transfer over to India and then the download speeds. Right. Is that a problem, or is there a solution for that?
Not really. We use our project management system. I don't know if you can do that big of a file, but if that's the case, we use Dropbox. And we have T1 internet connection over there just as fast as Comcast over here. So usually download, upload speed is not a problem.
Because we have hundreds of videos that need editing, so I can speak to you later about it.
We actually have had few clients whom we set up Kajabi, and they had hundreds of videos. Excellent. And we were able to do it. So
excellent. I'll speak to you later about it. Thank you. Sure. Thank you.
So I have several clients who are asking for apps. So part of the question is it possible to work with you as like a third party, like an intermediary, so that my clients can come to me and get apps, but I can have you actually create those apps?
Sure. So one of the section of our clients is actually we do white label solutions. So we understand if you have a lot of clients who are either looking for web development or mobile apps, we can develop a strategic partnership where we do all the back-end work as a white label to you, and we can completely brand the dashboard and everything. So your end clients will just feel like that your company is doing the work, even though we are doing all the back-end for them.
I have a couple of questions. The first one is I love using virtual assistants, and the website I always use is Odesk.
Sure.
Do you have other good sources where you can find really quality VAs?
So the difference between Odesk and Elance versus us is we actually find these people and they work for our clients exclusively. So they are not freelancers, or they basically, when we bring on a client, typically we find clients who are looking for a very, very long-term relationship, and they're looking to hire people on a dedicated relationship basis, on an ongoing basis, and these people from our India office work just like their own employees. So I highly recommend Elance and Odesk and Guru.com if you're looking for quick projects. But if you're looking for a very long-term business and very long-term project, it always helps to bring on a person who stays with you for a very long term, because they understand your business, they understand your product, their motivation is a lot higher than a freelancer who works for many other clients. So that's a subtle difference between Odesk, Elance versus what we do.
That makes perfect sense. And my second question is, I've had a few ideas for apps, and when I check, I realized that there are people who are doing not exactly the same, but similar ideas. Let's say if I want to work with you, would you guys be able to help me differentiate? And I know that it's very important for the apps to be on like the top 5 list. Is that something you guys also work on?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, that whenever you're working with a development company, you want to make sure that there is somebody in the management who also understands business and marketing. And one thing which we add a lot of value to our clients is that based on our experience with marketing and business growth in general, we also do high-end consulting with the client. So before even developing, for example, an app, we have a very comprehensive, very scientific way of documenting and architecting, wireframing the entire app, looking the possibilities of what could work, could not work, and give them very specific guidelines of what you should be doing. Because a lot of the times, especially with mobile apps, when the clients come in, they have just an idea in their mind. And what we are really good at is taking the idea from their brain and making a very detailed report with wireframing and all the workflow of how the app will flow. And then when they see all that architecture on paper, before we even start writing one line of code, it really gives them a lot of breakthrough ideas of what they were missing in the app or what they should be doing. So that's very helpful, and we do some high-end consulting as well.
Very cool. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Dimitri from Boston. Firstly, a couple of resources for you, easyoutsource.com and onlinejobs.ph, only if you're looking for people in the Philippines. Those are great sources to hire. And then a question for you is kind of on that same basis. So you said you started off in the Philippines and then kind of started working with different people in different countries. A lot of your team is in India. What have you found as so most of my team's in the Philippines. What have you found as most of the kind of the difference in strengths and culture within the different countries, and why have you chosen to build in different countries versus just focused on one?
That's a great question. So Philippines is a great country, and I love people over there. I've worked with many people. For me, whenever I look for a virtual assistant role, people who want to do repetitive tasks on a daily basis, something which typically we as entrepreneurs will get really bored out of, I really find that Filipinos are awesome. They do an outstanding job of following your instructions and doing exactly what you want. And they usually don't get, if you find a good Filipino worker as a virtual assistant, they usually don't get bored so easily. But when it comes to design and development, and I'm a little biased because I have been born and brought up and grew up in India, and I spent first 20 years of my life in India, and I'm an engineer myself. I find that typically Indians are a lot more creative, and they're also entrepreneurial minded. So it really helps when you're building a product. You want to work with somebody whom you can resonate with. And I personally have got a lot of good success with working with Indians. And last but not the least, the big reason I personally chose Indians was because I really understand their language. I really understand their psychology. So when I'm working with my clients, me sitting in San Francisco and my partner in Cleveland, we do a really good job of filling the void between the cultural or psychological things which my clients don't understand. And we do a really awesome job of connecting the two dots so that there is a flawless delivery and communication is really, really high end.
Awesome.
So that's the reason I picked India.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, and we'll speak later,
Sure.
as you know. Two questions. I thought this may be of value, and one is the requirements gathering and documentation process actually is a major pain point in most project initiation. So I'd like to hear you speak to that, and that may be of benefit to everyone who is trying to get their ideas into process. In other words, having the idea and giving the idea and transferring that in a way where it'll be visually documented and be able to move quickly. You spoke to that briefly, and I think that's a good thing to know. That's step one. And the other things I'd like to know are about how your real skill set, whether you do deep application, data manipulation, or mostly website development, where is your sweet spot?
Got it, got it. So just to emphasize on documentation purpose, so I'll give you a quick analogy of what we do is, if you were to go build a house and you had an idea, oh, I want a house overlooking Pacific Ocean, it should be that big. If you have an idea of building an app or a website with that mindset, where you just had an idea, what we do really good at is that we have an outstanding team of technical architects, and they basically look at your idea and build like a whole map of the house, which is easy to implement, which developers understand really well, and there are very few last-minute surprises when we are into the development. So that's what the requirement gathering and documentation and wireframing does for you. And the second part of your question was, what are our sweet spots? Our biggest strength is web development, whether it's related to PHP, whether it's related to .NET, relates to WordPress. We're really good at that, and we also do a pretty good job in web design and mobile applications. So mobile, both iOS and Android apps. These are the four main pillars of our business. And then anything around it, we see like a case-by-case basis that if it holds the client, from moving forward, we will do everything possible to find a consultant on a temporary basis to keep the project moving.
Thank you. We'll speak afterwards.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. My name is James Mwangamba, and I'm from Tanzania, the land of Kilimanjaro and Zanzibar and Serengeti. First of all, I'm very overwhelmed and excited by the idea of hiring virtual helps or virtual developers. And I wanted to know, for somebody who wants to create mechanisms, okay, after the website has been developed and you guys have worked out and helped out, how do you draw the line between continually giving advice on creating mechanisms and just offering what you have to do? I mean, how does it work with consultations as somebody goes through the process?
Right. So, so basically what we do is we are very, very flexible company. So we look at the long-term relationship with the client. We look at the size of the business. And then depending on their long-term and the size of the business, we build custom package for the client, which includes both design development as well as consultation. So we basically package it in a way so that if you need some marketing help and within limited bandwidth of what we have, we try to give you some advice. But we are definitely not full-blown marketing consulting agency. We mostly focus on design and development and anything which is around it, which helps you to get your developers most productive, get your projects flowing, and a little bit of marketing advice here and there. That's always welcome.
Thanks very much. I'll see you later for more.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Greg from New York City. I work for Splash. These guys are great. I recommend them to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. That was good one.
That's so good. Okay, good. Did you have a handout or something that you gave these guys?
Yeah, we wrote a really educational report which goes more in detail what I just covered. It's called Insider's Guide to Hiring a Web or Mobile App Developer. I've covered 32 uncomfortable questions your web developer hopes and prays you won't ask, and 6 simple hiring mistakes that can cost you time, money, and your reputation. So you can go to my website and download them for free. My website is dedicateddevelopers.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Vishal.
Thank you, everyone.